Hi, my name is Dene Broadbelt. I'm 21 and I'm an Australian media personality from New South Wales, Australia. I was a victim of bullying from about year 4 in primary school when I had a birthmark on the side of my head, and the students in the other classes, and also in my class as well, used to call me Mole Man, which was, I guess, a very daunting experience during primary school because I had nobody to connect with. I didn't really have any friends, and my mum and dad separated at the age of 8, so we were always moving around, moving house, changing schools. I remember there was one stage during primary school where I almost went to 3 primary schools within a time span of at least 4 years. So I didn't really have anyone to connect to, and it's basically, I guess, built up over the years where it made me go into hospital and have the birthmark surgically removed because the students used to call me Mole Man. And as I just said, I didn't really have any friends to talk to, so it was quite a daunting experience. There was a time where I guess, kind of had enough, and I spoke out and really was kind of, I didn't really know what to say to those students that were bullying me because it was, as I said before, a daunting experience, and I kind of just had a generic comeback to the bullies, and it was kind of, well, yeah, whatever you reckon. But that was kind of giving in to them because I was walking away, and it kind of upsets me nowadays to think that students and parents, well, parents and teachers always say to victims of bullying that you just got to walk away. Well, not really, because that's giving the bully, I guess, a kind of more of a target because you're walking away from them, and it's kind of giving in to them. So now my kind of comeback to bullies is, well, if you're going to pick on me, you better be perfect because, well, the way I see it, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, and I'm sure whoever's watching this video isn't perfect as well. And if you are, well, congratulations to you. But my kind of take on the whole situation and what I did to overcome the bullying that I experienced in primary school and high school as well was I basically spoke out, and it wasn't until after high school that I spoke out. When I did speak to my parents during high school and primary school as well, it was kind of a daunting experience because Mum used to take the approach of, hey, well, I'm going to be the bully, I'm going to go pick on them. And there was one stage where people were throwing rocks on my house roof and trying to get me to come outside of my house to pick on me and bully me. And she, I remember at one stage, actually took to them with a cricket bat and chased them down the road, which at the end of the day was not the best approach to take, and it surely wasn't, I guess, a legal approach to take as well, and it kind of caused more embarrassment to me, but I guess I've overcome that as time has progressed. But look, I think the way that people need to stop bullying is definitely talk out. Don't let these bullies get in the road of you and let you cower down, because you're going to be on the same level as them if you do that. And don't listen to the teachers when they say you just need to walk away, because in reality you're giving in to those bullies and they're thinking, hey, I'm the better person, I made him walk away, he's going to go cry, or she's going to go cry. At the end of the day, you need to stand up and fight your own actions, and even if it's just a comeback, like there's comebacks out there like it takes 2 to tango, that's not going to work because they're still getting at you. You need to kind of come up with a moral where you're speaking out and you're biting back at them. Again, that's a 50-50 ratio. It can cause problems either side, but I guess you just need to stand up for yourself and really talk out, and don't be afraid to talk out. That was, I guess, one of my biggest issues as well. There was times where I've had family members try and commit suicide. I've contacted Lifeline for help. I've spoken on the Beyond Blue website to the counsellors on there as well. So there is help, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. I was the target of bullying at high school and primary school. It was more in high school because I didn't really fit in with the social norms. Growing up here on the south coast in New South Wales, I guess at high school you had to be one of those cool kids, kind of like the song Echo Smith Cool Kids, where you basically had to fit in with everybody else. And I guess that was kind of an important part of what all the other students at high school were trying to do. They were trying to fit in with the cool kids at high school, you know, the surfers and go surfing. I wasn't one of those people where I had the ripped bodies and was going surfing every day with mates after school. I kind of had nobody during high school. The only really person that I did have in high school was a friend named Joe, and I basically met him in year 8, and it also was my girlfriend at the time, who I met during high school, and it was in about year 8 and 9, and she stuck up for me during times that I was getting bullied. But I guess I just had enough, and I gave it back to this kid, and he used to have big ears, and I used to call him Dumbo a monkey. And basically there was one stage where I ganged up on him with a bunch of other students, and we tried to cut his ears off, and I remember getting suspended for 14 days, and I look back at kind of what I'd done to him now, and I think to myself, what a gutless prick I am, because he was suffering the same thing that I was going through. And I remember seeing him walk out the school gate at the time that I got suspended, and he went home crying, and it really makes me upset nowadays to think I done what the bullies were doing to me, to him, and it kind of was a really gutless thing that I kind of done. My biggest motto at school was I didn't talk out about the bullying and depression that I was going through. Just remember that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always people that you can speak to, and they're going to listen to you. Some might not. A lot of people haven't listened to what I have to say, and a lot of people go, I'm just crying out for exposure. Well, then there's some people out there that really do listen to me, and it's taken quite some time for that to happen. So just remember that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that you're not alone during the journey. Back in 2012, I was crowned the youngest content director in the country, which is basically somebody that's in charge of the radio station. I was working in radio at the time, and I was in charge of a bunch of on-air announcers in Goulburn. At the time that I took the position, there was a lot of changes in management there. They just had a general manager that passed away. There was lots of interim managers kind of filling in here and there, and it wasn't really the right time for me to join the station. I had a job basically in Dubbo where everything was laid out like a deck of cards for me. I had friends, I had family, I had a house that I could go home to, I had a pet that I could go home to every night. And basically when I finished up in Goulburn, I lost all of that, and it was basically starting from scratch again, which to this day I haven't been able to return to the media industry because it's not ready for me. But I guess, look, I took a silly turn in life, and I decided to jump into that job at Goulburn, and it wasn't the right time for me, and I'm really kicking myself now because I look back at the memories that I had in Dubbo, and I'm kind of reminiscing on those moments that I had, because they were fun moments, and they were moments that I cherish actually, because I had friends there, and I was going out on weekends. I was doing the stuff that a normal 21-year-old teenager should be doing. It wasn't being isolated to a bedroom or a house, which is basically my life now. But I guess when I got to Goulburn and the new general manager took over, look, she basically didn't like me from the get-go, and I think they were kind of intimidated on having somebody at such a young age being in that role as content director, because it is a pretty, I guess, a big shoes to fill for a 21-year-old, taking the reins of a radio station and being in charge of managing the on-air announcers, the overall sound of the station. And yeah, look, I guess that's kind of why I didn't really have that close connection with the management at Goulburn when I was working there. Is I guess it comes down to my age. They were a lot older than me, and it was kind of the way I kind of see it is they were walking on eggshells because I was so young, and I was kind of doing the same as well. Nothing that I'd done at that radio station I never got praised for. I was involved in a large-scale music event which I never should have put my hand up for when I was working there, and at the end of it I kind of got the blame, and yeah, look, it was a kind of a wrong turn that I took in life, and I do really regret taking that turn, because it's cost me my job, my life, and my independence really. And basically I'm standing here now with nothing, and I used to have a job, a family. I've lost family members, I've got no friends, and yeah, it has been a really scary ride. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride from the time that I left Goulburn. Yes, look, I have been diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety, and I'm basically doing several things to overcome that. And I guess when you are diagnosed with such a serious illness, a lot of people don't recognise depression and anxiety as an illness. It is a very big illness, and it doesn't get enough, I guess, media light on the issue of how big an impact it can play on someone's life. I've been suffering clinical depression and anxiety now for some time. I only recently got diagnosed with it, and to overcome the diagnosis, and continue with my everyday life. I have been medicated, so I'm taking antidepressants on a daily basis for the depression and anxiety, and I'm doing I guess little things that kind of get me out of the house and trying to reconnect with that social world and the world out there. Like, I know for many people, when you do get diagnosed with anxiety and depression, it does stop you from doing a lot of things, but it's important that you don't lose that connection between yourself and the outside world. Maybe even if it's getting outside of the house and going for a walk with the dog down the street and smelling the roses, at least you're still out there connecting with that social world. And I guess that's a big impact on a lot of people's lives when they do get diagnosed with clinical anxiety and depression, that they kind of separate themselves and they get locked into this little world that is very hard to get out of if you do get locked into it. I've experienced it myself, but you need to keep getting up and fighting and trying to get out there and connect with people on a daily basis, even if it's not people. As I said before, go for a walk with the dog if you've got animals at home, or just go for a light brisk walk down the road and smell the flowers along the way. At least you're out there connecting with the social world, because you don't want to get trapped into this big hole that's depression and anxiety takes you down. Basically, as a lot of people know it as the black dog, you don't want to get bitten by the black dog, because once you're bitten, it's very hard to be chucked back out again. Have I been consuming alcohol? No. I used to consume alcohol quite a fair bit, and I've kind of stayed clear of that because suffering the depression and anxiety and being medicated for both types of diseases, the effect that it plays if you do drink alcohol is pretty nasty. So I do try and avoid the alcohol as much as I can, and try and stick to just a pretty clean diet, which hasn't been going on too well. The last couple of weeks I've been stocking up on cakes and pastries and sausage rolls, so I think it's time to shed a couple of kilos. But yeah, the answer in a nutshell, no, I haven't been turning to alcohol. What are my goals for the future? And moving on, my goals for the future is basically, at the moment, I'm really focusing on being a mental health advocate and getting the word out there about anxiety, depression, bullying, defamation, and what it can, the serious effects of what it can have on people. But I guess my long-term goal would be to get back into the radio industry. I know that radio isn't ready for me right now, and I don't plan to make an immediate comeback, because there's a lot, as I said before in this interview, there's a lot of people out there that have their own kind of thoughts on me, and unfortunately I can't change that. And there's a lot of negativity out there on the internet, which is circulating, and it isn't really shining the best light on me. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is kind of move forward and put all that behind me. I know that it's going to take some time, and it's not going to be something that's going to happen miraculously overnight. But at the end of the day, I do want to work back in the media industry. I've got my book coming out at the end of the year, which is basically laying all the truths on the table about what's happened and my kind of story. There is something very interesting happening in the next couple of weeks, which will hopefully get the right media attention that it needs to receive. I'm touring around Australia at the moment, going to schools. I've got some visits coming up in Sydney in the next couple of weeks to high schools there, talking about my story and the awareness for depression and anxiety. But yeah, the long-term goal is to get back into the media industry. Short-term goal is to keep my head above water and keep fighting every day, because if, as Kelly Clarkson says, what kills you makes you stronger, and these things have already killed me, pretty close to. There was rumours circulating the internet that I was found dead, but I've got back up and kind of built my bridge and kind of got over it. But yeah, those are my long-term and short-term goals, and in January I'm heading down to Melbourne to host a Guinness World Record attempt for the biggest water balloon fight for bullying, and that's going to be really exciting, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Company for inviting me down to Melbourne to do that and take part of that Guinness World Record Challenge attempt. So once again, thanks for all watching, thanks for your support, and I hope to catch up with you soon. Thank you.